In Module 2, I got you to put together a weight loss plan, and the purpose of this was getting you to think about the bigger picture and the journey that you're on with the aim of losing 1 to 2 pounds a week, because what we spoke about was that dropping your calories too low would get you a short-term result, but then your body would get used to it. You would stall and wouldn't be able to drop it any further. You were already eating a tiny amount of food. You couldn't eat any less. You might have already been exercising, so you couldn't push yourself any further, and you wouldn't be able to move forward. And that's why our goal throughout this program was getting you to actually start building on it slowly. We got you to start by adding more vegetables to your meals, drinking more water, starting to walk a bit more, then focusing on one meal, then the next, then the next. And the reason why we're approaching it in this manner is by making these gradual changes, that's going to actually start pushing you through the plateaus, getting you to move quite a long way along your path. And then once you have those shifts in habits and behaviors, then you can really start looking at reducing portion sizes, actually increasing your exercise levels and other factors in that to help you continuously move forward. So what I want to do in this video is talk to you about some strategies that actually going to get you to break through the plateaus, because regardless as to any plan that you put together, any diet or any program, eventually you're going to hit that wall. And that's why it's really important to remember that depending on how much weight you have to lose, it can vary from once every 5 to 15 pounds that your body gets used to it, and then you really need to evaluate. So the first thing that we really need to take into consideration is how long it's been since you haven't lost weight. Because remember, the body can fluctuate on a week-to-week basis. So if after 7 days your weight has remained the same, I don't want you to panic. Instead, I want you to wait for 2 weeks until you see no change, and then that's an indication that it's time to change it up, because it could be other lifestyle factors. It could be that week maybe you didn't sleep as well, maybe you were stressed out, maybe you ate extra carbohydrates or were storing more water, or maybe it was hormones or something else. And that's why we don't want you to act too soon, because you want to drag the weight loss out 1 to 2 pounds for as long as possible, because then it's going to be easier to progress the plan over time. Remember, our goal here is not to overhaul everything at once. So if after 14 days you have become stuck, then it's time to really reassess your plan and have a look what you're doing. And first and foremost thing to look at is your foundations. Are you drinking enough water? How much sleep are you getting? Are you putting enough fruits and vegetables in? Are you doing your walking? If you've got all of that as a part of who you are, then you might decide that it's time to reduce your portion sizes. So what you could start with is reducing a portion of carbohydrates or a portion of fats from different meals. Remember, you still want a balance of all of these nutrients, but depending how much of them you're eating on a day-to-day basis, you might actually decide that for lunch, maybe you want to go with a salad with some protein and healthy fat, or maybe you want to actually reduce the amount of fat at certain meals if you are on a high-fat diet. This is really going to come down to the foods that you're eating, and if you're following the portion size guide that I gave you at the start of it, then you could remove half a fist of carbohydrates from lunch and dinner, helping you cut down slightly. You might want to bulk up your meals a little bit more with vegetables so that you don't go hungry, but just start reducing your portion sizes in a way that your calorie intake drops. And remember, we're not looking for a drastic shift here. And going back to the calorie amounts just as an indication, let's say your maintenance level is 2,000. Let's say you've been eating in a way that roughly was working out to about 1,700 calories a day. Well, all you really want to do is drop it by 100 to 150 calories. That's then going to get your metabolism working again and help you get back on path to losing that 1 to 2 pounds a week. Then when you plateau again, then you can reduce it slightly. Or you can push yourself to find ways to walk more. You can go to exercise classes, you can join a gym, you can go swimming, or a whole host of other activities getting your body to move more, which is going to burn a lot more calories on a day-to-day basis. As far as exercise goes, it is really important to remember that you can have too much of a good thing, and one thing that can cause people to plateau is that actually exercising too much. If you're doing more than 4 to 6 hours a week, you're not getting enough sleep, you're not putting the right foods into your body's not going to be able to heal and recover properly, and that in itself can have a hugely detrimental on your weight loss and also how you think and feel about yourself. And this is a mistake that I personally made a few years ago. I had the mindset that some exercise must be good, more must be better. I started spending 2 hours a day in the gym. I completely burnt myself out. My cortisol levels were beyond elevated. I was always on edge. I was so stressed, barely sleeping. I was moody, but I was so determined to lose the weight, and I didn't recognize I was doing more harm than good. I kept injuring myself because my body wasn't healing and repairing itself, and it actually made the entire journey far longer. And that's how I want you to think about how much you're exercising on a weekly basis. If it is safe to increase it. And if so, different activities you can do that are going to help you burn calories but not put as much stress on your body. You might decide to start something that's low impact. You might look at doing yoga, something that's going to help with your stress levels and your mindset, because the hormones in your body and how much stress you're under can actually affect your metabolism as well. So that is a small shift, looking at these different factors in your life that can actually help you moving forward with your journey. And another change you can make sure that you incorporate into your plan is once a week or once every other week having a treat meal. Now, this will be called in fitness quite a lot a cheat meal or a cheat day. And I don't like that term because we're not on a diet here. This isn't something that you can cheat on. Instead, you're eating a balance of what you want and what you need and looking at something that you're going to do for the rest of your life. And I think as soon as you put the word cheat in there, it's fueling negative relationships with food. It's getting you to view it as something that is normally off limits, you shouldn't be having. And that can really push people into this mindset of binging and overeating. And this is why it's so essential that we change the stories in our head. We shift our mindset and put ourselves back in control. And that's why I like to think of it more as a treat. It's that once a week where you actually reward yourself for all of your hard work with a meal that you otherwise wouldn't as part of your plan, something that you overindulged in, that you really enjoy, and you do it in a way that you're actually having it because you want it, not because it's controlling you. But the most important thing to remember with this isn't an excuse to go on an all-out binge. One of the biggest problems I'll see over and over again is people eat really well from Monday to Thursday. They'll be in a calorie deficit, they'll be losing weight, and then the weekend comes and they'll start drinking too much, they'll start eating too much, and they'll undo all of their hard work. And that's why they stay on a level playing field and can't understand why they're not moving forward with their weight goals. And that's why if you are really serious about losing weight, this is a big task that you're taking on, you really need to be careful with these, that you're not undoing an entire week's work in an evening of overdoing it with food. So choose a meal in the week and have something that you enjoy, savor it, actually enjoy yourself, but don't go overboard. Maybe it's a Friday night takeaway, maybe you go out for dinner on a Saturday with your partner, or maybe it's Sunday, you want to go to the cinema and you want to have some popcorn and chocolate or whatever it is. So treat yourself in a way that nothing has to be restricted or off limits, but also in a way that you're actually enjoying it for what it is. Because the good thing about when you actually have this treat meal is it has a knock-on effect that keeps your body guessing. Because when you're eating similar foods all of the time, you're in a calorie deficit, your body starts getting used to it. But then all of a sudden, when you spike your metabolism by eating more food or having different forms of food that you wouldn't normally, then your body and metabolism starts running again. And this is why it's such an effective strategy, because it keeps it going up and down and really keeps it guessing. And that's going to help you moving forward. So if you are really into fitness and you're exercising a lot and in a calorie deficit, another thing that you could do every couple of weeks is take a day where you eat really high carbohydrates, refill your glycogen and energy levels by having a high carb day where you might eat above maintenance or slightly more than that to get your metabolism fired up. But without overcomplicating it, I just want you to choose one meal a week where you do something that wouldn't normally be on your weight loss plan, to enjoy yourself, to have that balance and start changing up what you put into your body. Probably one of the best and most effective ways to break through plateaus though is to take a break. If you've been on a low-calorie diet for an extended period of time, you've been eating in a calorie deficit, you've been pushing yourself, losing a lot of weight, exercising as much as you could, eventually you might get a point where you become completely stuck. And here for a lot of people, they panic because they can't eat any less food, they can't exercise anymore, and they're actually mentally and emotionally drained from being in this calorie deficit. And that's why one of the best things you could do is actually say to yourself that you're going to increase your food intake for the next 7 to 14 days. You're going to eat more to maintenance level. Maybe you want to add 400 to 500 calories a day. Get that to the point where you start actually putting more food into your body. Because being in a calorie deficit is hard. It can be mentally and emotionally draining. So this might be what you need to give yourself a break, to re-motivate yourself and let your body heal and recover. Let your metabolism return to normal, and then you might be able to start at the top again, slowly reducing your food intake and building on it over time. And that's why it's so essential to keep reassessing and looking at how you move along the journey. But one of the most important important things I have to warn you about during this is you probably will gain weight this week. I often get a lot of my one-to-one clients, when we use this approach, get into a mindset where they panic. Because what happens is they've been eating less carbohydrates for the last few months because they've been bulking out their meals with vegetables, or naturally that was the food they chose to cut down on. And then all of a sudden, when they do increase their carb intake, their body holds onto water. And I had one one-to-one client go into a complete panic because she gained 8 pounds in a week. And I said to her not to worry. There was absolutely no way she could gain 8 pounds of fat. And all she was doing was storing excess water. And it was one of those mental things where it really pushed her over. And then at the end of 14 days, when she returned to eating normal, she actually saw that all of that water weight came straight off, and she'd actually lost 3 pounds. She had given her body a break and moved forward. But for her, during that period, it was really disheartening because she'd worked so hard for this weight loss, and she thought that suddenly all of it had been undone. And that's why I want you to prepare yourself mentally and accept that that's probably going to happen. And while the science on this isn't exact, just to give you a way of actually understanding this properly, roughly there's around 3,500 calories in a pound. So for you to gain a pound of fat, let's say your maintenance is 2,000 calories, you'd then have to eat a further 3,500 calories on top of that in a day to gain 1 single pound. And even that isn't exact. Your body isn't going to be able to store that much fat in a day, depending on when you eat the food and how much you're eating. But just as a rough guideline, if you're increasing your food intake by 400, well, let's round up and say 500 calories a day for 7 days, that's going to be 3,500 calories. Now, if you're already in a calorie deficit, all that's going to do is take you up to maintenance. You're not actually going to be gaining any fat, and even if you do, it's going to be minimal at best. But because of the water intake, you might be storing 5-6 pounds, whereas it's physically and scientifically impossible for you to have gained weight in that week in that extent. And that's why I really want you to think about, actually, if you're going into this week where you're going to increase your food intake, don't weigh yourself. Give yourself a break from the scale. Give yourself a break from focusing on losing weight, and take this little bit of time off to focus on enjoying the journey, enjoying eating a little bit more food, and rewarding yourself for all of the hard work over the last few months, but not falling into a mindset where you think, I can eat anything I want this week now. I can do 5-7 days of treat days and go completely overboard, because yes, then you might fall into a situation where you can undo some hard work. But if you're just increasing your food intake slightly, you're focusing on still having healthy, balanced meals, but just putting a little bit more into them, you're not going to do any damage. And in the long run, this is going to help get your body guessing again. It's going to get your metabolism working again and help you shatter through that plateau. So just as a recap, as and when you do plateau, what I want you to do first is think about the different factors in your lifestyle. How have you been sleeping? How are your stress levels? Have you been focusing on your foundations? Remember, you want to wait 2 weeks without seeing any change before you reassess. And at that point, think about, can you reduce your portion sizes slightly? Can you find ways to actually move more on a day-to-day basis? Choose one of them, try it for the next 7 days, see how much weight you've lost. If you're losing 1 to 2 pounds a week again, then you know that you're on the perfect track. If you're losing more than that, then you know that you've overdone it. Then it's time to maybe increase food intake slightly, maybe cut down on exercise a bit, and find that sweet spot where it's 1 to 2 pounds, because that's going to give you room to maneuver as you move along your journey. And then keep going and reassessing every single time as you move further towards your goals. Find ways to work in your treat meal every 7 to 14 days. And then also, once you've been at this for a consistent long period of time, think about taking a break for 1 to 2 weeks, letting your body recover, letting yourself actually heal mentally and emotionally, and taking a break from this journey. And then you start again. You start with a higher maintenance level and you start breaking it down and seeing how you progress. So what I want you to do is, when you do plateau, I want you to share it in the community. I want you to talk about what you've done so far, what's been working up until this point, and what you're going to do to shatter through it, because then I'll be able to give you some personalized help and advice to make sure that you can keep moving forward. Because just remember, plateaus are part of this journey, and regardless of who you are, your body type, and what you're doing, eventually you will hit that wall. So mentally prepare yourself for it. It's not a bad thing. It's not something you want to get disheartened about. Instead, when you actually recognize that it's going to happen, you're not going to let that throw you off course. You can recognize that it's just a part of the process that you're going through. You can reassess and then build on it from there.